This is Mr. Fisher's 4th grade class.
And you're listening to the West Ada Podcast.
The awareness of our programs, I think, is that key first step. And so just everything that we can do to make sure families know what their options are, knowing that their neighborhood school is an amazing option for them. But if you're looking for something a little bit different and you want to just see what your options are, there are some out there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the West Ada School District Podcast. We're going to get to our conversation in a minute, but I've just got to give Brian Fisher's 4th grade class at Eagle Hills a little bit of love. I went and did a story with them a couple of weeks ago. They're amazing kids. So thank you to them for welcoming all of us into today's podcast.
Yeah, not only are they cute, but they're very eloquent and smart kids. So thank you for putting that together, Ken. Thank you for being here. We have a great conversation coming up with Meg McGroarty from Renaissance High School and David Jakious from Pioneer School of the Arts talking about schools of choice.
Yeah, because the deadline is coming up.
It is.
November 30th is the deadline of this month. So we wanted to have this conversation with them, and they are the experts. They were phenomenal.
It is. It's a great conversation. So stick around and hear what they have to say. All right, we are here with two of our phenomenal principals, Meg McGroarty and David Jakious, and they're going to talk to us about schools of choice today. Welcome.
Thank you both for being here. This is great to have you both here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been a school of choice parent for a while, but to really get into the nitty gritty, and it's application season, if you will. So we'll get all those details.
That's very cool. Well, Meg, if you wouldn't mind to start, I know you're new to the district. This is your first year as the principal at Renaissance High School. Can you give us just a little bit of your background? How did you get here?
Yeah, gosh, I will try to keep this brief.
You're fine.
See, I think this is year 22 or 23 in education for me.
Right.
So I was born and raised in Southern California and started my career at San Bernardino High School in San Bernardino, California as an avid tutor. Actually was at UC Riverside planning on going into book editing. And I met this boy who gave me a shiny rock that I still wear on my finger. And plans kind of changed.
Yep.
That happens. Yep. Yeah.
So I became a tutor and figured out that I really like teenagers. They're super fun and their energy is ridiculous. And I just love being able to kind of get into it with teenagers and help them channel that energy in a positive direction. So I started a master's degree and credential program, ended up being picked up at John W. North High School in Riverside, California.
Cool. Yeah.
It's an IB World School. That becomes important later in the conversation.
It sure does.
Yeah. So I spent 10 years there, 7 as a teacher, and then I became an assistant principal on the same campus. And then my husband and I decided that there was too much sunshine in California. And so we moved up to Washington State and lived in Western Washington for about the last 9 years.
Get away from the sunshine.
Yeah. Turns out we needed a little more sun back in our life. But no, I have... we brought my daughter up with us, and then my son was born in Western Washington. And actually, because of some health reasons and a variety of other reasons, decided that we needed to move somewhere with less variation in barometric pressure, which is a whole other conversation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we've got family in the Boise area. And so I decided to apply and was fortunate enough to become the principal of Renaissance High School. So this is my 12th year as an administrator. I spent 3 years in middle school, but everything else has been in high school. And so I've been at Renaissance for about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So getting to know the district, getting to know the area.
Sure.
But fortunately, I've had a few reps as far as being a high school principal before.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's
very
great.
Cool.
And it's wonderful for all the background you have, especially stepping into a new district at go time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I have to continually remind myself, I was hired 5 weeks before the first day of school.
Right.
I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break, a very little bit of a break.
Meg, fire hose,
Yep.
Meg.
Yeah, I'm right.
One of those things.
Pretty much how I function best, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, and David, you're at the Pioneer School of the Arts. How long have you been there? Give us your background.
Yeah, so this is my 13th year there. So we moved over here in 2010. I grew up in Oregon and went to the University of Oregon. That's where I met my amazing wife. She grew up over here. She was born in Boise and grew up in Mountain Home. And so we moved back here to be closer to her family. And I was lucky enough to come into Pioneer. So before that, I was teaching and then a couple of years as an assistant principal at a middle school. And when I came over here, I had an amazing opportunity to step into Pioneer School of the Arts. It's just a remarkable community. And so I feel like I have the best job in West Ada, best job that I've ever had. And so, I've just been happy to be there for 13 years and trying to make a difference for those kids.
Now,
really cool.
has Pioneer been a school of the arts, a school of choice the whole time you've been there?
It has. So I think it opened in 98. In 2005, it became a school of the arts. And so I came in 5 years into that.
Okay. So it's pretty well established at that point. And I'm sure you've seen some changes in our processes over the years. My kids go to a school of choice, and we've been in one other school in the district. Terminology has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that have changed. So what are some of the things that you've seen change, and does it really affect the bottom line of teaching?
Well, I think that one of the things that West Ada was really smart about is they saw the desire for choice early on. And so they established this school of choice system, and whatever it's been called, whether it was magnet schools or schools of choice, it became an option for parents, and our families really value that. And we do it really well because of how long we've been doing it, the consistency we have, the levels of support that we have. I know that I was drawn toward the school of choice because it's able to specialize. And when you have a specialized focus when it comes to the arts, all the research shows that students are going to benefit from it.
Right.
They're going to be more engaged in their learning. They're going to be more creative. They're going to explore. They're going to use higher order thinking skills that construct their knowledge. There's that experiential anchor that helps them understand things and learn things and remember things better. And because of that, we have kids who achieve, I think, at a higher level. And that's really what this boils down to, is supporting kids in a way that helps them learn their best.
Well, and you say you have the best job in West Ada. I feel like I have the best job in
I
West
have
Ada.
the best job.
Say, wait a minute.
Well, and I think, so I interview a lot of people in my job with West Ada, and I always joke, hey, talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. But I think it really is kind of, for this conversation, for us to kind of define terms. Can we, and we've talked about it already, but can you all define it, to either one of you, define school of choice, define magnet school? Can we kind of lay that groundwork for our listeners? Because I know there was a time when my kids were younger where I vaguely understood those terms, but can you all define that for us a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to say, it would be kind of interesting to see if we have any differences in the way we
No, I'd love to.
define it.
Yeah, pick both your brains.
So,
yeah.
because I've kind of jumped into this world. I come from the comprehensive high school side of things. And so, and I kind of look at that and I make a comparison. So a comprehensive high school is really kind of what you think of as kind of your typical kind of air quotes normal school experience, sports and assemblies and all that kind of stuff. And a school of choice is, it's different. It doesn't necessarily have all of the same offerings, but it's got some additional offerings that aren't available at the comprehensive site. So for Renaissance specifically, we're an international baccalaureate program. We're one of only 4 in the state. So when you talk about choice, like not a lot of kids in the state actually have the choice to participate in a program like IB.
And for parents who don't know, I'm sorry if I cut in right here, but before we get too far, we 10,000 foot view of IB.
Gosh.
Or what's the benefit or what
IB
attracts
is kind
parents
of, so
to that?
most people are familiar with AP, advanced placement. IB is a much more comprehensive approach, and it's kind of AP gone crazy, if you will. So it is an all-in program. You don't just do part, where AP you can kind of pick and choose your areas that you want to take AP courses. IB is a comprehensive approach to the junior and senior year primarily, although there's preparatory work that happens in the 9th and 10th grade year. And it really is intended to have much more of a global perspective when it comes to curriculum, and it's got a more integrated approach to a curriculum. So it's not just standalone courses, but there's actually intersections, if you will, between each area of the curriculum.
Thank you for that. Before we got too far, some people may not know.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, kind of going back to what we were talking about with as far as defining school of choice, it really is, hey, I have this kind of specialized interest, whether it's a specialized interest in, performing arts or fine arts or the academic side of the house. At Renaissance, we've got some incredibly high performing students.
100%.
I kind of joke. I run a school where 90% of the kids are smarter than I am.
I know that feeling all too well. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're there because they want to be there. And
Sure.
I think that that's an important defining factor. You know, they have made this choice. Their families have made this choice. This is the path we want to pursue, which I think is pretty incredible to make that decision at 13, 14 years old. And this is the direction I want to go. So I'm interested to see how you define.
And I would say that engagement is huge. With us, a lot of times it's parent engagement, right? They're engaged and they want their child to come to our school because of our specialized focus,
Right.
whether it be the arts at Pioneer or maybe science and technology at one of our STEM academies. The parents see that value. And eventually the kids see that value too. We had this administrator for a day activity last week, and I had somebody from the community come in to learn more about Pioneer. One of the activities we created for that was we visited a 5th grade classroom. So speak to me like I'm a 5th grader.
Sure.
We had those 5th graders
sure.
speak to us, and it's probably the high of my year so far.
Oh,
Hearing
that's
these
cool.
kids talk about how much they value the extra opportunities that they know not every other student gets, that they get to do these things and create and express themselves in different ways, and that they get to play an instrument at the elementary level, and the level that they appreciate their teachers and the ownership they have of their school. I think that is a really prime factor of why I appreciate being at a school of choice so much.
That's very cool.
As far as the schools of choice, we all have a specialized area, and how it differs from a magnet school, I'm not really too sure, because really the magnet schools are, you draw people to your school because of your specialized focus. And I think that we do that as well with our programs, because our programs are really robust and really consistent, and families that are part of those programs really appreciate them.
I think years ago, magnet was just kind of a term we used loosely as a focus of a certain school, but it wasn't as formalized as it is today. And so something that I think a lot of parents may not know is Idaho has been one of the pioneers statewide in a school of choice type model. And so we've been doing this for a long time, like you said. And so people come here and are not quite sure what's going on, and you know, charter schools and things like that, which these are not. I mean, charter schools are public schools. These schools of choice are public schools. They're not private. We have, you know, standard curriculum that all students must learn and be able to do. And then they're just kind of like in addition to, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, and I think that we teach the same standards like you were referencing, and we
Sure.
take the same state tests. And so we have to prepare our kids to the same level of rigor that all schools do. We just do it through what I think is a fairly innovative way to deliver curriculum and to really engage kids in that. Plus, there are some additional arts opportunities at the art schools or science and technology at the STEM schools. And then as we get into secondary, there's some amazing options. Renaissance is a remarkable program. We have
Right.
kids at IFA, Idaho Fine Arts Academy. Last year we had our grad walk, and I had kids come back from these programs, and I got to talk with them about
cool.
the kids who were at Centennial had an amazing experience
Sure.
there. I got to talk to the kids who are at the schools of choice, and they're telling me these opportunities and where they're going and the path that they've set. And it's just really impressive that kids can have that ownership and can have that choice within our district.
That's very cool.
Well, and I think one of the things you kind of touched on, we cover all the same standards and all that. I think one of the things that differentiates us from a charter school is that we are within a fully comprehensive district. And so we get to leverage the opportunities that having a large supportive system like West Ada does that maybe a charter school doesn't necessarily. You know, I've got friends who've worked for charter schools, and I think they do some fantastic things, but oftentimes what limits the opportunities for kids and adults is just the size of the system.
Right.
Because they tend to work in, you know, either independently, or they only have a couple of other charters that they kind of work with, where because we are a fully public school, we get to leverage, you know, the benefits of being in a large public system.
I agree with that. And I even jotted some of those down, and I know I'm going to forget somebody. So But
Sure,
we have an amazing,
sure.
we have a communications department. We have professional development with
Right.
a cadre of amazing coaches, a special education department, a counseling department, multilingual learner supports, gifted and talented programs, a facilities department that makes sure that our buildings are ready for learning, a technology department, school nutrition, nursing, transportation, finance. We have leaders here at the district office who are ensuring that we can do what we do best in the building, which is educate kids. And
so
having
much.
that level of support is huge. It's a
Very
game
cool.
changer.
Well, and not to get too wonky, but I love what you're saying there. But just one more term, like in district versus out of district. Can you define that for us and define that for our listeners? Because I think understanding that is a fine point to either of you.
It's all about where you live. I mean, truly, we have
Pretty simple.
boundaries. It's pretty simple. Yeah, we have school district boundaries. Our boundaries are pretty large. We incorporate multiple cities within our boundaries. Sometimes, so school district boundaries are a little funky because they don't necessarily go along city lines
Right.
or even county lines. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've worked in a district that covered 2 counties and 4 cities. I'm not sure exactly how many we cover in West Ada, but quite a few.
Right.
So like I live out in Star. Well, we don't have a separate school district out in Star. We're part of West Ada.
Right.
But you go, I think I'm about 4 blocks from the boundary line. If I lived 5 blocks down the road, I'd be in a different school district. So that's all we're saying when we talk about in district versus out of district is it's about where you live. And that kind of determines what school district you go to. It doesn't determine whether or not you can go to a different school district or a different school within the same district. It just means you might have a slightly different process to go through.
Yeah, and our schools of choice in the lottery system, it does prioritize in-district students, but we do have students who participate from, all over the area. We have kids who are driving past multiple schools or driving out of their district and into West Ada to ensure that they can come to one of our schools of choice, which is really cool.
Join us December 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. at West Ada's Parent Learning Community event.
Únase a nosotros el 11 de diciembre de 6 a 8 p.m. en el evento de la Comunidad de Aprendizaje para Padres de West Ada.
The theme of this PLC is Stronger Together, Thriving Through Winter. The focus is building a stronger family unit.
El tema será Juntos somos más fuertes, prosperando durante el invierno. El objetivo es construir una unidad familiar más fuerte.
There'll be various sessions highlighting fun and engaging activities to enjoy at home or at one of our Meridian public libraries during the frigid winter months.
Habrá varias sesiones que destacarán actividades divertidas y atractivas para disfrutar en casa o en una de las bibliotecas públicas de Meridian durante los gélidos meses de invierno.
This event is open to all parents and guardians. Don't miss out on this fun, free opportunity. For all the details, check out the link in the show notes.
Este evento está abierto a todos los padres y tutores. No te pierdas esta oportunidad divertida y gratuita. Para conocer todos los detalles, consulte el enlace en las notas del programa.
So we mentioned earlier about the application process and the deadlines coming up. As a school of choice parent myself, I know I had to fill out the intent to continue form, and that's something you have to do every year. Would either of you like to kind of address that intent to continue and how that helps you look at numbers and move forward in the lottery?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that I can kind of give the broad overview. So we're in the intent to continue window right now. I just talked to my secretary this morning. We only have 13 who haven't returned.
Oh, perfect. Good.
So we're actually really intentional. It sounds like Galileo is as well.
Yeah.
Really intentional about making sure that we make contact with every single family. It is a state required component of schools of choice. We have to know who's coming back. From a high school master scheduling standpoint, it's huge.
Right.
I'm actually really excited because this is the most stable attendance I'll have at any school I've ever been at because I know exactly who's coming back. And that helps me determine what exactly I can offer. With a school of choice, and I think that this is true across the board, we're pretty specialized. And so to know I have exactly the right number of kids and exactly the right number of classes so that I can provide the opportunities, as many as possible for every student within the school is really, really important.
Yeah, and at the elementary level, we really try to keep families together. And so a student, once they're in, is going to continue on. Their seat's going to be reserved for them as long as families let us know. And so the siblings will be in the same tier of the lottery. And so for elementary purposes, it really helps us just make sure we know exactly what we need, what we have, and what we need to do going into the lottery season. How many spots we have open, how many kids we think we have coming in as siblings. And it just makes sure that we know what our enrollment's going to be and we can plan around that.
Yeah.
And that's, sorry, just really quick. That's something actually that we've run into that's really important. Thank you for bringing that up, is making sure to indicate siblings.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
We need to know that, because we do provide a different level of priority, because, we know that this is sometimes a bit of a burden on families to get students to the schools of choice. And so we want to make sure to honor, hey, you've got a sibling coming in. We're gonna give that kid a little bit of an extra priority,
which is cool.
Yeah.
Well, and you touched on this. So the reason why we're having this conversation now, the deadline is November 30th for the application process. If you could, just 30,000-foot view, you've mentioned the lottery. Let's go through the application process. What does that entail? How does that look?
So the application window got moved up this year. It used to be the month of January, but we moved that forward, and now it's going to be the month of November pretty much. Applications open up on the 7th and are due by the 30th.
Right.
And so during that time, we're going to be reaching out and trying to connect with as many families as we can and make sure people know what their options are. And a lot of our families do look around, and they look at each of the options and see what's going to be the best fit for them. Most of our schools of choice will have tours during that time. We have one on the 13th and on the 28th at 4:30.
Ours is on the 7th and the 8th.
Yeah, so come on down to our schools.
Yeah, great.
And they get to get a feel for what the school's like. Families can apply to more than one school of choice. It is hard to narrow it down. We have some amazing schools, and so I don't blame families for wanting to be at more than one of them and wanting to have their odds of being included in one of these programs increase. And so they can apply to more than one, and they've changed that process a little bit too. At draw time, students can now get picked for more than one of our schools of choice, and families will then have an opportunity to pick out of the ones that they were drawn for which one they're going to confirm placement at. But the key thing is we just need to make sure families are aware that those applications need to get in by the 30th, because after that you're looking at the late application window, which will open, but there's a gap in between those, and families can apply then, and then it's just if space is available. And so a lot of our schools do fill up, and there are waiting lists for a specific grade level, or maybe even at all grade levels. And so getting into that on-time application is by far the best chance of getting into the school.
Yeah. And there are different components to each of our applications, kind of depending on what the school of choice has going on. So, at Renaissance, because we are a highly rigorous school, we do look at test scores, and we want to make sure that we have students who are coming in who are going to be able to handle the academic load that we're asking of them. I know IFA has tryouts, so each student has an area of focus, and so they may have to perform a dance routine, or they may have to perform a piece of music as part of their application process. And then, as David was saying, we are looking continually at our wait list. And so I know I was admitting students. I think the last student we admitted was 2 weeks before school started, because we ended up having, a family that moved, and that opened up a spot. And so we're going to get in as many of those kids as we possibly can, because we want to honor the desire to have this experience. But we also we have to make sure that we're following the process, and honoring that.
Yeah. And I think that's an important differentiation between the secondary and the elementary schools of choice, because at the elementary level, there aren't criteria of student performance or any sort of audition for the programs. It really is those tiers of the lottery that are the only difference that a family might have of getting in. And those are siblings, proximity to school, in district, out of district, really are what we're looking at.
Yeah. And just a point of clarification, because we talk a lot about families, and a lot of families do appreciate that preference to get their siblings in. But you don't have to have all your kids go to the same school. No. And we know that every learner has different needs and different interests. And so you may have a family where kids are at 2 or 3 different schools depending on their choice.
Yeah. And it was interesting. I think early in my career at Pioneer, I had a lot of families coming because they felt that the arts are going to complement their kids' learning, or they're going to match their kids' learning. My child's artistic, and so I want them to come there so they can express themselves through the arts. And as time has gone on, I've seen a much greater balance between that and, we've got math and science at home. That's how they think. I want them to develop this side of their thinking. And so it's interesting to see how that has shifted over time, and we have a balance of families who come to us either because they think it's going to match or it's going to complement their child's learning style. And so, families do choose. We have some families who have kids at different schools. And so it's a good option for families as they're looking.
It's interesting you bring that up. I serve on a charter school board and have since that school came into existence. I helped write the charter. And when we were writing the charter, we had a certain target demographic of student that we thought this is the perfect student that will want to go here. These are the kind of families. And as time has gone on, and then it's interesting how that shifts, and it's nothing that all of our science and research could show. It's just where the need comes and what the interest is for families.
That's very cool. Yeah. Well, and I know you've touched on this a little bit, but can we drill down a little bit onto the random lottery draw that happens in December? Explain that. Can we really give us some details of what that looks like for our families?
Sure.
Meg, do you want to start?
I'm going to actually let David.
I've gone through
It'll
this.
Be my first time.
Sure.
I haven't gone through it at the secondary level, but I can describe the elementary, and I'm assuming secondary is pretty similar.
Sure.
So like I mentioned, there are tiers to the lottery.
Right.
And so the first thing we look at are siblings of currently enrolled students. They are guaranteed a spot if a spot is available. And so, incoming kinder siblings are pretty much guaranteed a spot, right?
Right.
Siblings who are at an older grade, it's just going to be space available. Then the next tier of that lottery are in our primary attendance area, and each of the addresses in West Ada have a primary attendance art school, a primary attendance STEM school at the elementary level.
Okay.
And so that's where they're going to have the best chance of getting in. They can apply to any of them. Those are just the ones that they'll have that primary attendance area. And then after that, it's the whole district. And then after that, it'll be out-of-district students who want to come in. And so we run the lotteries with a random number generator. So it truly is random. And we run them at each of those until we're full. And then we order our wait list. And then as spots become available, we work our way down our wait list and let families know that there's a spot available.
Now I'm picturing like the NFL draft or something. Are you in a room with like the registrar and secretary? I mean, do you all meet up together? Or is it pretty much just behind the scenes?
No, and parents are invited as well. So parents can
I love the transparency of doing that. Sure.
And we will tell them their child's number and then confirm with them before they leave. It's the only way to know before the letters get sent out to whether or not your child has gotten in. But you don't have to be there. It's like not one of those you have to be present to win situations, right? Like you're going to be notified. And then new this year, if you get into multiple schools, we used to pull them from subsequent lotteries. Now you can get into multiple schools. And so we'll be notifying families and they'll be letting us know which one they choose to go to.
So now,
and I will say, just at the secondary level, everything is exactly the same with the exception of the second level you talked about, the attendance, school of attendance, because like Renaissance, we don't have we're it.
Yeah.
And IFA is kind of it at the secondary level. So
Right.
I forgot what I was going to ask.
Oh, well, okay. Well,
I'm really good at interrupting.
No, that's fine.
Well, and so the wait list. Can we drill down on that a little bit too? How does the wait list process work for people who don't get in the first try?
Yeah, so I mean, we just keep our wait lists, and like I said, we numbered them at the lottery, and then after that, on that late application, it's just chronological order. When you apply, becomes your spot on the wait list. If a spot comes open, all the way up until when we get to our intent to continue time frame, we are pulling kids off of that wait list if there's space available. And then once we get to intent to continue, that's really locking our spots for next year. And so because the lottery is about to happen, we need to now preserve those spots for the next year. So we don't move kids off of the wait list after we get into that November timeframe of the next year, but we'll invite students in all throughout the year until that happens.
Okay, I remember. With the multiple acceptance ability to be in multiple lotteries.
Oh, right.
They will have a shorter window to indicate their decision, right? You'll say you have these 3 schools to choose from. You need to let us know in this short time frame. Other families who maybe just applied to one school, they have a little bit of a longer time frame before they accept.
Yep.
Is that how that works?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
And it's really important to get that done inside the time frame
Yes.
because it moves on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 3-day window for the multiple schools at this point, but a little bit longer if they just got into one.
We're excited to let you know that Remind is now available district-wide. If you haven't used it before, Remind is a classroom communication tool that makes it easy to stay involved with your students' learning. Remind is free to use, and you can send and receive messages on any device. To learn more, we've linked the parent onboarding guide in today's episode description.
All right, let's talk a little bit about getting the right fit. Who is the ideal student or family for these different schools of choice, and what is really the first step that families and students can take in determining that?
Yeah, so I think really the first step in determining that is determining what's the right fit. So I was a comprehensive high school principal for a number of years, and I had a lot of conversations over the years with families about, maybe this isn't the right fit for you. And in the comprehensive system, really, we're designed to meet the needs of about 80% of the population. And that leaves us with 20% of the population where, the big high school experience just doesn't quite work.
Right.
It worked for me as a student. I went through a large comprehensive high school and it was great.
Right.
It didn't work for my sister. I would say she's a little different.
All sisters or brothers are. Come on.
Well, I'm the oldest. So but that just... my mom watched me go through and I was fine. I had my struggles here and there, but she recognized that Mandy needed something different. And so she sought out a smaller, it was a school of choice or a magnet school. I was in California, so we mix up terms all the time. But that's what she needed. She needed an environment that was a little bit smaller, that was a little more specialized, tailored to her academic needs, and where she was seen a little bit more easily, just because there were simply fewer kids on campus. I think she had 250 kids on campus.
Right.
And so the faculty really got to know her, where, we try the very best we can and we make great relationships with kids on a comprehensive campus, but it's a little easier to get lost when you've got a couple thousand kids as opposed to, 600-700 kids.
Right. And now when you talk about 600 or 700, that's more aligned with an elementary size school. So it might be different. What is more the target student or family for a school of choice?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, like I said, we give tours, and so I get to have a lot of conversations with families, whether it's in the tour or they call me after, or somebody's just trying to figure out what's the best spot for their child. I sense that there's almost this stress in parents because there are so many choices in this area,
whether it's
within West Ada. And people feel like, all right, I'm making the decision and I'm setting the path for my child, and this is the decision that's going to make the difference between are they successful or not. And so they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And so what I talk with parents about is finding the right fit. And so I'll talk about what Pioneer does, what we think we can do for all of our students. But I tell parents you just have to go with that gut feeling because, and I can only speak really for West Ada, but whether it's the school that's assigned to your home's address, whether it's one of our schools of choice, you're going to get an excellent education.
Absolutely.
And so it's really, is it the right fit for you and your child? And that's what I stress with them because, as far as the arts are concerned, the research shows it works for all kids. There's not an ideal student. Like the strategies that we use, the way that we engage kids, it's going to work for all students. The same is to be said when we do that through science and technology and the way that we support our secondary learners in the schools of choice as well. And so I'm not looking for a certain profile of student. I think that families are looking for what is the best fit for them.
Right.
And I think I would layer on with the secondary. I think it's really important to talk to your kids about what
100%.
they want.
Yeah.
I've got a middle schooler and then a preschooler. He's 2.5, so we're not quite there yet. But I have made the decisions as far as their academic lives up until this point. My daughter's in 6th grade now, and I'm starting to give her more of a voice. And I think by the time kids enter high school, and there's research that backs this up, it's really important that they are a big part of the conversation. They're helping to make those decisions because I will tell you the students that we struggle with the most are students who they don't want to be here, but their parents want them to be here. And
Yep.
so there's almost this increase in tension. And I love teenagers because they rebel. And man, if they don't want to be there, they're really good at rebelling.
How do you I don't know what the question is, but how do you engender that conversation, right? Because I mean, Renaissance is rigorous, and so it's right next to our district offices. So the other day they had a band performance out in the hallway. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm listening.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, it's so rigorous.
Yeah.
How do you get parents and students, and that may not even your job, but how do you get parents and students to talk to one another and go, hey, let's really have an honest conversation about this? Or what would you say in that situation?
I guess I would just say exactly what I just said. It is just having that honest conversation around really talk with your child, and sometimes I'm going to get a different story as a school administrator or as a teacher than a parent is. But when I have that conversation with a kid and they just express, I don't want to be here, just having that honest conversation with parents, I'm getting feedback from Ken that he's not happy here. He's not wanting to be here. And so, what does that look like? Do we need to make a different choice? How can I help support you as a parent to help support your child make the best decision for themselves? Which it's a difficult transition at the high school age because they're still completely dependent on us, and they should be, but they're also becoming more independent and having stronger opinions. And I kind of joke that my second title should be counselor.
Right?
Because I do feel like a lot of times it's just having that, okay, let's all have this conversation. And sometimes, my role will be translating between what I'm hearing the kids say and what I'm hearing the parents say for each other, because I want the child to hear what their parent is saying just as much as I want the parent to be able to hear what their child is saying. And then my role is not to be the decision maker in that case. My role is to help facilitate the conversation so that they can come to the best decision for their family.
Oh, that's great.
Cool. That's very cool. Well, and equitable access, I think, David, too. I mean, why is it important and I know you spoke to this earlier, because all kids are going to do well at any of our schools, but why is it important to have these different access points, I guess, is the question.
Yeah. Well, I want Pioneer to reflect our school community, right? So I want every parent to know about our program and about every School of the Arts, STEM Academy, their options at secondary with IFA and Renaissance. Because I think that when we bring in a community that reflects our overall community, it makes us stronger. And so the key thing is making sure everybody knows. And so that's why we're trying to get the word out. I mean, during this time period, we want to make sure every parent knows that they have this option available to them, and we hope they consider it.
Well, and I think it's also really important to note, and you brought it up a little bit earlier, for all parents in the district, these are all district schools. These are all district supported schools, not just a school of choice, but your neighborhood school that you might be assigned to. And you're going to get a darn good education, as our test scores have recently showed. District wide, it doesn't, parents don't need to feel overwhelmed. If you don't get into the lottery for this school, your kids are still going to get a great education at your neighborhood school. So don't feel overwhelmed or paralyzed by that choice, because we do. We think, oh, I have to set them for success, and I have to get them in this, and I have to have them in this program. Your kids are going to do great here, and that's our job, is providing a free and appropriate education for all students. So
and I think my school is the best school in West
Ada.
but every principal, absolutely, every principal thinks that, because they build amazing cultures in West Ada. And I have tremendous respect for every single educator I've met here, every leader. You're going to get a great education wherever you're at in West Ada.
Well,
for sure.
And I think that just by the mere fact that we have schools of choice in existence speaks to equitable opportunities. When I think about Renaissance, and we haven't talked about it a whole lot, but we also host some of the district's advanced CTE offerings on campus.
Right.
So we have two what we traditionally think of as very different students on campus. But we're providing opportunities for kids who have a particular interest or a particular mindset or orientation towards education. And, when we talk about equity in education, I think a lot of times we kind of focus on one aspect of equity. But providing an opportunity for a kid who is super high achieving and is super academically minded to thrive in an environment that was designed specifically for them, I think that is equity.
Right.
And I think that gets lost. And, to provide an opportunity for a kid who is just that artsy kid who just loves performing and can get the academics and can get the performance aspect, that is providing equitable opportunities for all kids, because again, it's open to every kid in the district. And so it's all about finding, where is my spot? Where do I belong? And then let's get you there.
And likewise, where it may not necessarily be school of choice, we do have our alternative academies too, that are great options, and they're smaller in size, kind of like you were talking about your sister's needing to be, more seen by her teachers and stuff. We have wonderful academies available there too. So I think we definitely cover the gamut.
Well, one other reason why I have the best job in my state is I get to go to all the different graduation ceremonies, and to see, to your point, to see the difference of the way Central Academy is versus Renaissance versus Mountain View. It's really cool to see that culture, and there's no, I'm just blathering, but how cool is it to see? I guess the question is, to your point, at Renaissance, you've got these high academic achievers. And then we were at a fire protection class or fire class. To see that interplay between those students, how nice is it to have that interplay, I guess is the question.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So one of the things that I talk about a lot, maybe too much, is I have 2 children, and my 2 children are very, very different. My daughter is very academically minded. She, minds her P's and Q's, and then my son is a little hurricane. And, I think both of them are intelligent and, are lovely, but they're just 2 vastly different people. But I can see both of them at some point ending up at Renaissance. I see my daughter much more on kind of the IB or AA kind of academic side of things.
Sure.
And it's not that my son isn't going to be academically minded. I think he absolutely is. He's an early reader, all of those things. But that child needs to be touching things and doing things constantly and moving all the time. And so to be able to have really hands-on education with CTE and to be able to cater to a student who is highly intelligent, who has a particular interest, but also be able to cater to, those highly academically minded students, I think is lovely. And I'm actually doing some really, really intentional work to kind of bring those 2 worlds together, because we're on slightly different schedules and we're in slightly different parts of the building. And so it can be a little bit of a challenge. But we're working to really intentionally bring the entire school together so that we have this beautiful complementary kind of, I don't know what the word I'm thinking of, but
like a symphony mix.
Almost. There you go. Thank
Symbiotic
you.
or right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Between those kind of 2, what we think of as different worlds, but really they're beautifully complementary. And I guess one more kind of plug. I guess we're one of only 2 schools in the state who offer the IB Career Pathways program, which kind of blends those 2 worlds together. So it's actually required that they complete a career pathway through CTE as well as IB courses, because we recognize that it's, you kind of traditionally, I think of CTE as kind of the, construction worker kind of, but no, you absolutely need high levels of functionality and intelligence for our trades and for academics.
Well, and as Dr. Bubb would say, and he says it all the time, it's not college or career, it's college and career. And we're producing well-rounded students who have opportunities in both.
Yes.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well, and we've hit on so many different subjects. I will say this, in the show notes, we'll put a link to westada.org. If you click on the menu button, you can then go into the menu and click on schools of choice. So a lot of the stuff that we've talked about is there. But I think, as we're kind of wrapping up here, David, how do we help parents make good decisions, or how do they see? Because like when I walk into IFA, it's a totally different vibe. I'm sure Pioneer's different. Any of our comprehensive schools. How do we best help our parents make that choice?
Yeah, I think that the discussion of culture is a really interesting one, because when we're talking about schools that have specialized focus areas, it's going to draw leaders who are drawn to that focus, teachers who are drawn to it, families and students. And so our schools do have different feels. And so it's one of the reasons why I think those tours are so important, and going and engaging with the leader at that school. If you're curious about what that's like, you get a feel for that. And I think that everyone can find that home, that place that feels right in West Ada. which is one of the key pieces of our school of choice system, is making sure people find that spot where they feel at home. And it ends up being that 5th grade conversation that I had with those kids who just felt that ownership and that appreciation for their learning in a way that I never felt when I was in 5th grade. Like, I was just so impressed. And I think that that's a lot of what we're talking about when we're trying to help families get there. So if they have questions, I just encourage them to reach out and to come in and to see what we're all about.
And trust your gut. I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot, you guys. Before we wrap up, I always joke whenever I do an interview, like, what did I not ask you that I should have been asking you? But is there? I mean, we've covered a lot. Any final thoughts from you all before we let our listeners go?
You guys did a really good job of kind of going through everything that we need to cover.
Yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity to get together and talk about this and make sure, because like I said, awareness of our programs, I think is that key first step. And so just everything that we can do to make sure families know what their options are, knowing that their neighborhood school is an amazing option for them. But if you're looking for something a little bit different and you want to just see what your options are, there are some out there. Yeah, absolutely.
So cool that we can do that. Yeah.
Make sure you get that application in by November 30th, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here. I know you're very busy, so thank you for taking the time to sit down with us.
Thanks
Loved
for
having you.
inviting us.
Yeah,
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Yeah. What an amazing conversation with Meg and David. So great to have them. So thank you again to them for being here.
It's great to have them give the perspective of the elementary level and the secondary level, so we can really help all parents make an informed decision on schools of choice, or maybe your neighborhood school is just the perfect fit for your kids. So
great stuff.
Thankful to them for being here and taking time out of their schedules.
Yeah, and thank you for being here as always. Please listen to us wherever you get your podcast. If you listen on iTunes, leave us a review. We'd love to have that. Or if you'd rather watch, of course, you can watch on YouTube, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As the shameless plug I always give, but I'd love for you to subscribe there as well. We'd love to have you. And you can always see past episodes, westada.org/podcast. And send us an email. The cool thing is, we've got kind of planned out what we're going to be doing through the first quarter of next year even. Yeah. But please, send us an email, because we want to know what you want to hear about. We've got some great guests lined up, but we really want to cater.
Yeah, make sure it's relevant to what you need in your decision making as a parent and that kind of thing. So
so do that.
Good.
And we're coming back. Our next podcast will be December 11th with an amazing guest.
Absolutely. We have KTVB former meteorologist. That's a hard word for me to say. Meteorologist.
Yes.
Good thing I'm not up there doing the weather. Bree Eggers. She left last spring, I think.
She did.
Had, like so many of us, she had to make that tough decision of work, family, and getting that balance in there. And so we're going to talk to her what it's like to be a working parent, and how to make those decisions, and really all the things that drive parents during this time of year.
And the holidays. The holidays, there's a lot going on. And this is kind of a conversation that's kind of close to me, because honestly, when my kids were young, for 7 or 8 years, I was a stay-at-home dad doing my business from home. But these are decisions that are hard to make, so I can't wait to have this conversation.
And she's also kind of a cool science gal, science in the classroom is something she's really passionate about. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
It'll be a lot of fun.
So make sure you tune in to the next episode on December 11th, and it's great to have you here. Thank you.